Most fans of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow incorrectly think Nidoking and Alakazam are the best for a playthrough. But today we're going to look at the true top 10 Pokemon in Generation 1, like Clefable, who as a Moonstone evolution is often overlooked due to the Nido's amazing reputation. Now, when thinking about the best Pokemon, we're considering the experience of the average person building a team rather than someone doing a Nuzlocke run or speedrunning. And so to most players, Clefairy is a great catch because it can evolve right away. Just like the Nidos, this gives players a huge power spike that early youngster Rattatas just cannot hang with. Now, since any Pokemon can become good if you level grind it enough, our ranking formula becomes very simple. Simply, how many fights does this Pokemon excel in versus what are the costs? And on top of time, one other thing that factors into the investment variable are the game's finite resources like TMs. While Clefable makes good use of Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Psychic, this can be said for many Pokemon. Clefable's low barrier to entry and strong early game ranks it high, but you'll almost always see a late game fall off, which is unlike Machamp, who you can definitely use for a full playthrough. On Route 5 in Pokemon Yellow, players can trade a newly acquired Cubone for a Machoke, which then instantly evolves into Machamp. In Gen 1, Fighting type's best move is Submission with 80 accuracy and recoil, so no great stab moves hold it back, but that's really its only drawback. With 130 attack, Machamp can keep low kick and still land massive damage on normal rock and ice types. Plus, when you factor in that traded Pokemon gain more EXP, it's even easier to use. Unfortunately, Machamp will rely on TMs to really shine. It makes great use of Rock Slide, Body Slam, and Earthquake, but these are highly contested TMs which work better on some Pokemon higher in this list. And just like those who haven't yet subscribed, its playthroughs just end up getting held back a bit, which is similar to Gen 1's lone ghost type Gengar. Available in Lavender Town, Ghastly or a Lucky Haunter can easily be picked up before the 4th gym. Now for this ranking, we are assuming the player has perfect availability, which means Gengar can be acquired as early as level 25. You just need a friend. Now in Gen 1, Gengar is the fastest Pokemon that learns a sleep move, and it's also got insane power output even without a stab move. Haunter alone has a special stat of 115, while Gengar has a whopping 130. And so outside of Jolteon or Raichu, Gengar is probably the best Pokemon to give the Thunderbolt TM to. Psychic and Mega Drain are other strong options for it, but you don't need it as its natural Dream Eater is effectively both of these moves in one. Gengar also has the blessing of being Ghost type in a game where tons of Pokemon only learn normal moves, so the only thing that truly threatens it are Psychics. Apart from its trade, Gengar takes very minimal investment, comes relatively early, and is really only held back by a lack of stab move. Available just after Celadon, Snorlax is probably the most low-effort good Pokemon in the game. Snorlax comes at a respectable level 30 with Stab, Headbutt, Rest, and Amnesia. At 35, it gets Body Slam, and this is really all it needs. Gen 1 Amnesia sharply boosts the user's special stat, so Snorlax can very easily patch up its defensively lacking one of 65. It can send off meaty Body Slams, take an absolute beating, and is a guaranteed encounter. But if you're looking for a faster mid-game normal type, Dodrio makes an awesome alternate number 7. Just west of Erica's gym on Cycling Road, the weakest Doduo you'll find is level 26. And fighting one biker plus Erica's junior trainers will yield enough XP to reach level 30 and pick up Drill Peck. And I just want to really highlight this, Doduo alone is enough to solo Erica, and this will give you that one more level to acquire Dodrio. Dodrio has insane speed, amazing attack, and crits 1 in 5 times. With Stab Normal, it's a very strong candidate for Tri-Attack or Body Slam, and if you want to get extremely extra with it, you can even save up and give it Gen 1 Hyper Beam. Gen 1's mid-game gives you 2 great normal types, and either can be plugged in for whatever your team needs with little to no effort. And if low effort is something you like, Venusaur probably needs no introduction. Now for this ranking, we're taking the Pokemon's best performance from the 3 games. And so it's no surprise that starter Bulbasaur in Red and Blue is a top tier Pokemon. You really can't go wrong with Venusaur, but I think it can also be a little overrated. It struggles from Erica to Blaine, and despite being cool, Toxic Leech Seed is vastly overstated in usefulness. As a guaranteed 3-turn kill, Venusaur is often better just spamming Razor Leaf, which it of course does extremely well. And Venusaur does this so well that it often overshadows Yellow Victory Bell, tying number 6. Available before Misty, Victory Bell makes up for its worse availability with the Para-Wrap combo. Stun Spore guarantees Victory Bell can outspeed, and this allows it to take advantage of the broken mechanics of Wrap. Once paralyzed, an opponent has a 50% chance to not attack, and Victory Bell's Wrap only has a 15% 50% chance to miss. This results in a 7.5% chance that Victory Bell won't be able to wrap again, essentially meaning that as long as it can take a hit or two to get the para off, Victory Bell can whittle down any danger Pokemon. But if there was ever an underrated Pokemon in Gen 1, it would be Geodude. With a 65% accurate rock throw and the easiest kill in Gym Leader Pokemon history, this was all players needed to see before discounting the line. But Geodude is actually one of the best Pokemon in the game. Geodude can be picked up in Mount Moon, where most players' teams are still composed of normal bug and flying types. And when you factor in other types mostly having normal learn sets, Geodude's rock type starts to feel like the steel type of Gen 1. It can tank hits, learns Mega Punch, and super effective rock throws are even worth it, as Geodude's high attack guarantees a one-shot. Also in Yellow specifically, Geodude is a notable hard counter to Rival Fights 3, 4, and 5. So Geodude's early game is strong, but it's after Misty when it's given the 100 base power Dig that it really comes online. Now Diglett is often considered to be the best early user of Dig, but I would argue that Geodude is better. Geodude's higher attack and ground stab advantage make it the game's second strongest user of Dig, only outclassed by the Rhyhorn line. For neutral damage, Dig Geodude can one-shot nearly every Pokemon in the early game. Graveler alone can solo Koga and Blaine, while an evolved Golem provides massive benefit against Giovanni, Sabrina, Agatha, Lance, and Blue. Gen 1 Rock Guy is completely absurd and one of the most underrated choices. Unlike Nidoking and Nidoqueen, who are actually a little overrated for a normal playthrough. So Nidoking is famous for being the best speedrunning Pokemon in Generation 1. But when Nidoking is the only Pokemon used, it gains tons of experience, and this further cements its power above early trainers. This video is in the context of a normal playthrough where you're using 3 to 6 Pokemon, and in that context, Nidoking's base stats eventually catch up to it. The Nido's best performance are in Yellow, where they're almost necessary for getting past Brock, and this is not to be understated. And with its level 16 Moonstone evolution, it is amazing for the early game rival fights and trainers. But unless it's obscenely over-leveled, it just cannot deal with Misty. Now even without Dig, it fares extremely well against Surge, but really gets tripped up on Erica's team with its only strong option being Ice Beam. And with no ground moves, it's definitely not one of the best options against Koga. Sabrina dusts it, and you're left with a really mid-surf user that can still mostly dominate the last 2 gym leaders. Now we also haven't touched on items yet, but I think it's most fair to not consider their use. In general, healing items allow setup Pokemon to break the game, while X items have already let you beat it 3 times over. The only other thing Nidoking has going for it is its vast array of TMs. Bubble Beam, Body Slam, Thunderbolt, Ice Beam, and Rock Slide do make Nidoking great. But outside of maybe Earthquake, there isn't a single TM that Nidoking learns which another Pokemon can use more effectively. To keep it good, it requires a pretty high level of investment that without its late game really suffers. Still, given that it's the best Pokemon in what is debatably the hardest section of the game, there's no denying Nidoking is a top tier option. Number 3 then sees a 3-way tie between water types that all provide something different. Red and Blue Blastoise is of course an amazing water type, mainly because you can get it at the very start of a game. It destroys Brock, helps with both caves, resists Misty, and can solo Surge with the Dig TM. Blastoise doesn't have a great stat spread though, and it would like some investments such as Rock Slide, Ice Beam, or Body Slam. But even if you don't, its perfect availability gives you an amazing early game, and it's strong enough that you can run it through the rest of the game as a very reliable water type. The second water type is Gyarados, which is better than Blastoise in every way, but not without a great deal of suffering. Gyarados' Gen 1 special stat is 100, and this means it has an effective modern day base stat of 580. This modernized base stat only falls behind Dragonite and the legendaries, and so it's being able to use these stats before the second gym that gives you the biggest power spike in the game. The massive drawback is that to get this, you have to spend 2 rare candies and 13 levels of swap grinding a Magikarp. Gyarados is Gen 1's most dominant water type, but grinding it comes at the cost of your soul, unlike Tentacruel, who is a reliable late game pickup. Now Tentacruel won't really be used until after your 6th badge, but what it lacks in availability, it makes up for in low investment and strong performance. With 120 base special and 100 speed, Tentacruel is the strongest surf user in the game. Its high special also means it won't get one-shot by a psychic or electric type. Just surf till you find a high-level Tentacruel in the ocean, slap surf on it, and it's ready to roll Blaine, Giovanni, Bruno, Agatha, and Lance. Unfortunately, however, by the time you've done that, Gen 1 Alakazam has already beaten Lance and is the new champion. While not the best Pokemon in the game, there's no denying that Alakazam is a powerhouse. powerhouse. Confusion at 16, Psybeam at 27, and Psychic at 38. 130 special, 120 speed, no weaknesses, and oh, you can actually get it at level 16 if you're crazy. Alakazam is absurd, but it's definitely not without cost. To catch an Abra, you either need to invest about 30 minutes getting lucky YOLOing Pokeballs or have a Butterfree with Sleep Powder to outspeed. And after this, you still need to swap grind it to at least level 14. After 2 candies, you can then get Kadabra, which opens the floor to Alakazam. You can then outspeed everything in the game and 2-shot anything that isn't Psychic. It is really important to note that 2-shot, however. Alakazam is frail, and people don't like to talk about this. In a fight where it's not one-shotting, which these do exist, it just can't take a hit, meaning that it can't really sweep. You'll notice this against Lorelei's water types, where after landing a neutral Psychic, Takedown, Spike Cannon, or Lapras's Body Slam leave you in one-shot range. Alakazam is amazing, but its downright oppressive aura on enemy teams makes players overrate its usefulness by just a margin. Sharing number 2, however, is one of the few Psychics that Alakazam doesn't strictly outclass. In Red and Blue, you can trade a Poliwhirl for Jinx before Erica. Now, this does require you to grind a Poliwag 15 levels, so like Kadabra, Jinx is not without investment. But when compared to that line, Jinx really only misses out on fights against Misty and Surge. It also has lower speed and special than a lot of Psychics. And even worse is it demands Psychic and Ice Beam to really be good. Yet despite all these seeming drawbacks, I promise you that Jinx is top tier. It's the fastest stab Ice Beam user in the game, and unless you're running Exeggutor or Starmie, it's easily the best candidate for the Psychic TM. Stab Ice Beam makes your Erica, Giovanni, and Lance fights free, while Stab Psychic destroys Erica, Bruno, and Agatha. Jinx gives you less consistency, but a lot more completely free fights. And that's not even the best part. Jinx exclusively gets the 75% accurate sleep move, Lovely Kiss. And this is the second most accurate Gen 1 sleep move, only behind Paris' Spore. Jinx's secondary ice typing gives it a niche that stops Alakazam from purely outclassing it like Mr. Mime, while its superior sleep puts it way above Hypno and Exeggutor, all of which do deserve an honorable mention. Jolteon's speed, special, and crit rate also make it worth mentioning. It's the best user of the Thunderbolt TM, and with level up Pin Missile plus Double Kick, it's got one of the most diverse coverage sets for a playthrough. Sadly, outside of the Lorelei and Sabrina fight, the game just doesn't offer it enough opportunities. Now, while we've seen that every Psychic type is good, it's Water Psychic that holds the best combo. Honorable mention Slowbro gets this amazing typing, but its low speed often requires a setup turn, making it our number 1 spot, but with extra steps. And while this is definitely a controversial take, I just ask that you hear me out to the end. Starmie is the best Pokemon in Generation 1. Please hear me out. After the Pokemon Tower event, Staryu can be caught at level 15 below Fuchsia with the Super Rod. And sitting at a massive 28 level gap to the upcoming gym leaders, or 35 if you're playing Yellow, Staryu seems without hope. But if you plan to run Starmie for a playthrough, the effort is not only minimal, but you end up with Gen 1's best playthrough Pokemon. So to begin, Staryu is fine to be instantly evolved at level 15 via the Water Stone. It's also the best candidate for the Psychic TM. But that's not all. By the time the player reaches Fuchsia City, they can have picked up 5 to 7 rare candies to instantly take Starmie up to level 20 minimum. Then, because all the trainers on Cycling Road are skippable, you can come back here with your now moderately leveled Deathbot. And so fortunately for you, of the 24 Pokemon on Cycling Road, Starmie is super effective against 22 of them. Taking out this entire route is easy and puts you at a level 27 minimum. Oh, and guess what? A level 27 Starmie is capable of soloing the level 43 capped Koga. And outside of stab users, Starmie is the best candidate for getting the Thunderbolt Ice Beam combo. With 115 speed, 100 special, Starmie sweeps Koga, resists Sabrina, sweeps Blaine, double sweeps Giovanni, outclasses Lorelei, sweeps Bruno, double sweeps Agatha, and double sweeps Lance. Starmie requires a moderate level investment, but the payoff is a powerhouse sweeper capable of soloing the rest of the game.